Welcome, sleepy soul. I'm your storyteller tonight, here to help you drift into deep, peaceful sleep. Before we begin, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more bedtime stories. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. And if there's a story you'd like to hear next, I'd love to know that too. I never imagined our anniversary trip would end with me standing at the edge of a waterfall, soaked to the bone and completely alone. It wasn't supposed to be like this. But I guess people rarely marry the monster. They just slowly watch the person they love become one. It started 9 years ago at a music festival outside of Asheville, North Carolina. That's where I met Aaron. I was 21, reckless and hopeful. He was 28, older, confident, with that lazy southern charm that made everything feel warmer, even in the rain. I was fresh out of college and ready to be consumed by something bigger than me. He looked like that kind of fire. Aaron worked in construction. His hands were always calloused. His shirts always smelled faintly of sawdust and beer. But he made me laugh. He made me feel like I was worth something. So when he asked me to move in just 3 months later, I said yes without hesitation. Then came the ring. Then came the house. Then the slowly burning resentment I tried not to notice. He was never physically violent, not in the beginning. It was the kind of abuse you couldn't see in the mirror but felt like a bruise beneath your ribs. Silent dinners, mocking laughter when I cried, watching me clean while he scrolled through his phone for hours. And then one day I found out why. Laya, that was her name. Or at least that's what he saved her as in his phone. She worked with him. I pieced it together over time. Comments he'd made, things that didn't line up, strange late hours, lipstick on his jacket. I confronted him once. He laughed and said I was going crazy, so I stayed quiet. I played the loving wife, and I waited. I think this is the turn, I said, easing the car down a narrow gravel path choked with ferns and low branches. The forest swallowed everything. No cars, no neighbors, just us. And that's exactly why I picked this Airbnb. Aaron barely looked up from his phone. Doesn't look like much. It's not supposed to. It's quiet, secluded, just like you said you wanted. He muttered something and went back to scrolling. The cabin appeared at the end of the road like it had been grown from the trees themselves. Rustic, small, a wraparound porch dark with rainwater. The fog hung low, pressing into the earth like it wanted to smother everything beneath it. Inside, the cabin was cold and smelled faintly of cedar and mildew. I unpacked while he lay on the couch complaining about the wine glasses. At 10:03 p.m., we sat at the tiny dining table with soup between us and no conversation. "You've been quiet," he said finally. "Just thinking." "Wow, new hobby. Why can't you just be decent for one day?" I asked. "Because this whole romantic getaway thing is a joke," he scoffed. "You think a weekend in the woods is going to fix all the reasons we don't talk anymore. I thought it might remind us what we used to be. Or at least give us a clean way to end this." He stood abruptly, pushing the table hard enough to rattle the dishes. "I should have left when I had the chance." "Then why didn't you?" He stared at me. "Because I wanted you to break first." When he stormed out, he didn't take a coat, no flashlight, just his pride and that half-dead cigarette. I watched him vanish into the pines and waited 5 minutes before I got up. I wasn't worried. I knew the terrain better than he thought. I'd scoped the property online, read the reviews, even picked this cabin because of the trail behind it, the one that ended at a waterfall with a 500-foot drop. Before I followed, I checked his phone. He'd tucked it behind the firewood like I wouldn't find it. Same passcode, same carelessness. The messages were still there. Laya had sent 3 hearts and a photo of herself in his work hoodie. His reply made my skin crawl. "I'm telling her this weekend." She's too pathetic to fight it. Something in me went cold and clean and sharp. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I picked up the old iron fire poker beside the hearth and stepped out into the fog. It took 10 minutes to find him. He was standing near the overlook, staring into the mist. "You really followed me out here?" he called without turning around. "You left your phone," I said quietly. He turned, annoyed. "So what? Going to go through it again and pretend to be surprised?" "I'm not surprised, Aaron. Not anymore." He started walking toward me, hands raised in mock apology. "Look, Lena." That's when I swung the poker. A sharp crack split the air as metal met bone. He crumpled instantly, his pulse still there, barely. I took a breath and looked toward the trees. The sound of rushing water was louder now. Dragging him wasn't easy. He was heavier than I thought. My boots slipped on moss and damp earth, but I didn't stop. Not until I was at the edge of the waterfall. Aaron groaned. I knelt beside him, brushing wet hair from his forehead. "This is what you get for underestimating me," I whispered. Then I pushed. No scream, no thrashing, just the sound of water swallowing everything. Back at the cabin, I peeled off my soaked clothes and went to work. I bruised my own shoulder on the counter, sliced my palm on a broken wine glass, threw his phone into the woods. Then I waited, hyperventilating on cue, before calling 911 from the landline. My husband. He snapped. He hit me. He ran off into the woods. I think he might hurt himself. They believed me. Why wouldn't they? The perfect grieving wife, the bruises, the tears, the betrayal. Officers searched all night, drones, K-9 units, nothing. They didn't find him. They never will. I moved to Tennessee. Different name, different job, therapy twice a month. Sometimes I still hear the water in my dreams, but I never feel guilt. Aaron died long before that waterfall ever touched him. He died the day he decided I wasn't enough. And I learned that sometimes you don't have to run from monsters, sometimes you just have to push them. I never wanted to go in the first place. It was Olivia's idea, her birthday weekend, her rules. She'd found the cabin online through some obscure rental site. Not Airbnb, not Verbo, something called Pioneer Stay, which should have been our first red flag. The listing was vague. Rustic mountain escape, total privacy, natural spring nearby. No specific address until you booked. No reviews. Just a few moody black and white photos. Pine trees, a crumbling porch, and a loft bed draped in mosquito netting like it was Bali or something. "We're adults," Olivia insisted, bouncing in her seat while she group FaceTimed us. "We need to get away." Phones off, tequila on. "Come on, Haley. When was the last time you even had fun?" She wasn't wrong. It had been a rough year. My mom passed in February, and I'd been spiraling in slow, silent ways ever since. Therapy that wasn't working, a boyfriend who bailed after the funeral, and a hollow kind of loneliness that clung like fog. So yeah, I agreed. Maybe I just wanted to feel something again. There were 5 of us. Olivia, the wild one, neon tongue ring and no fear. Bria, her college roommate, sarcastic skeleton earrings, always the loudest laugh. Jules, Bria's younger sister, quiet but observant. Nikki, my coworker, practical, big on plans and boundaries. And me, Haley, the girl trying to feel alive again even if it killed her. We left early Friday morning. The drive was long, 4.5 hours into Northern California, winding through forgotten highways and half-erased forest roads. GPS gave up halfway, and the laminated printed directions became our lifeline. We lost cell signal miles before we reached the dirt road that led to the cabin. The tires spun over wet leaves, the trees closing in like ribs around a lung. When we finally arrived, it looked right in the worst way. Pine-shrouded, crooked porch, the forest pressing close as if watching. The door was unlocked. Inside, a note taped to the wall. "Welcome guests. Please be respectful. No entry to the basement. Enjoy your stay." "The basement?" Nikki frowned. "I didn't know it had one." "Every horror movie starts this way," Bria muttered, then laughed and dropped her bag. We unpacked. The place smelled faintly of dust and lemon cleaner. The air felt too still. No Wi-Fi. No service. Power flickered when more than one outlet was used. But the view out back, breathtaking. A valley of gold and green fog that looked painted. That night was chaos in the best way. Margaritas, loud music, never have I ever, drunken laughter echoing through the rafters. By midnight, we were sprawled on the rug, dizzy with sugar and tequila. Then Nikki noticed it, a small metal ring embedded in the wooden floor beneath the old rug. "Trapdoor," she said, voice high. "Leave it alone," I said too quickly. But Bria was already pulling the rug back. The ring creaked, wood groaned. A square section of floor lifted open with a crack. Darkness yawned beneath. A set of stone steps led down into the earth. "I thought the note said no basement," Nikki whispered. "Exactly," Olivia grinned. "Which means there's something worth seeing down there." "Olivia, don't," I warned. She just smiled. "Come on, scaredy cat." And somehow we followed. The air below was wrong. Cold, not musty, like something alive was breathing against your skin. The basement wasn't finished, just packed dirt walls, wood beams, low ceiling. In the far corner sat a child-sized table with one small wooden chair. Toys were scattered around. A headless plush rabbit, a wooden top stained dark, dolls that looked handmade, or worse. One doll had no face, another's mouth was sewn shut, the third had real hair. The table was carved with strange symbols, some recognizable, some not. "Okay," I said. "We've seen it. Let's go." Bria didn't move. "There's something on the wall. Hundreds of tally marks scratched deep into the stone. Some faded, some new." Nikki backed away. "Nope, I'm done." "Wait," Olivia crouched down. "There's a book." She pulled out a half-burned journal from beneath the table, the cover scorched but legible. Carved across it one word: marrow. She opened it to the last page and read aloud. "Mom said the fire would take the evil out of me, but the fire only taught me to move. I'll wear someone new every night." A chill crawled down my spine. "Put it down. Let's go," I said. Olivia didn't answer. She was staring behind me at a blackened candle circle burned into the dirt. "You guys ever done a seance?" she whispered. "Absolutely not," Nikki snapped, already climbing the stairs. "We're leaving." But Olivia smiled, that reckless smile. "Come on, just for fun. Light the candles, say the dumb lines, prove it's all just dust and stories." And somehow, we stayed. We sat in a circle, 5 candles lit. Their flames didn't flicker. They bent inward like being pulled towards something invisible. "Marrow," Olivia said softly. "If you're here, give us a sign." The air shifted, heavier, denser. "That's enough," I said, standing. Then, slam. The trapdoor above us closed on its own. We froze. Jules screamed. Nikki ran to the stairs. "It's stuck. It won't open." "Okay, joke's over," Olivia yelled. "Open it!" "I didn't do anything," Bria cried. Then came a wet, choking sound. We turned. Jules was on the ground, convulsing. Her spine arched, her eyes rolled white. She tried to scream, but no sound came out. "Help her!" Nikki screamed. Then her voice changed. Not Jules' voice, not deeper, layered, dozens of tones. "Marrow, where's the flesh?" Jules snapped upright, too fast to be human. Her eyes black, dripping upward as if ink was seeping out from inside. "I know what you dream," she whispered. Olivia took a step toward her. "Jules, it's okay. We'll help you." Snap. Her neck bent sideways with a sound that made Bria vomit. Then Jules crawled toward us, on all fours, joints cracking backwards like insect legs. "Olivia cuts herself and tells no one," she hissed. "Bria stole from her dead grandmother. Nikki," she turned her head, smile too wide, "you hit that dog and drove away." Nikki collapsed, sobbing. I grabbed the nearest thing, a rusted metal doll, and swung it. It connected with a sick crack. Jules dropped, twitching. The trapdoor opened by itself. Morning light poured in. We dragged ourselves out, gasping, crying, not speaking. Jules lay unconscious on the rug, peaceful, her eyes brown again. Then she screamed, a sound no human should make. She vomited a thick black fluid and went still. We didn't speak. We just carried her to the car and drove until we found cell service. At the hospital, they said it was a seizure, no physical damage, no answers. They admitted her to psych. That was 3 weeks ago. I visited yesterday. She doesn't speak now, just sits by the window drawing with crayons. Always the same image, a ring in the floor, a child's table, a circle of candles. And once, when the nurse stepped out, she looked at me. She smiled. Her eyes turned black, just for a second. It started with exhaustion. Not the kind you fix with a nap or a weekend off work. This was bone-deep, marriage-shaking exhaustion. The kind where you're too tired to cry, too numb to care. My name is Leah, and I was 29 when we booked the cottage. Eric, my husband of almost 7 years, had been sleeping on the couch for 3 months. Our conversations had dwindled to mechanical exchanges. Did you feed the dog? I'm running late. After the miscarriage last winter, something in us cracked. Not loudly, not dramatically. It was quiet and slow, like ice creeping across a windshield. So when Eric suggested we try a weekend getaway, just the two of us, no phones, no distractions, I agreed. Not because I believed it would fix anything, but because I couldn't stand pretending anymore. He found the listing on some obscure rental site, not Airbnb. Something local, nameless, probably sketchy. A century-old country cottage tucked into the edge of Vermont, about 4 hours from Hartford, Connecticut. The pictures looked cozy. Exposed beams, stone fireplace, antique furniture. The description promised secluded, peaceful, a fresh start. We arrived late Friday afternoon. GPS died 2 miles from the property, leaving us with only a dirt path winding through trees that grew too close together. When the clearing appeared, I felt an immediate wrongness, not haunted, not ruined, just off. Like a painting hung slightly crooked and no one bothered to fix it. Looks like something out of a postcard, Eric said, forcing a smile. I didn't respond. The cottage stood 2 stories tall, stone and weathered wood, ivy crawling up one side. The windows were all closed, curtains drawn tight. Are we early? I asked. No, check-in's at 3. Someone's supposed to meet us. He opened his door and stretched. Come on, don't judge it before we've even gone inside. As if on cue, the front door creaked open. An old woman stepped out, ancient, stooped, skin dry as paper bark. Her gray hair was woven into a single thick braid down her back. She wore a faded green shawl despite the warm air. You're the Parkers? She asked, voice stronger than her frame. Yes, Eric said. We booked for the weekend. The listing said someone would check us in. I'm the caretaker, she said flatly. I keep the keys clean between guests. She didn't smile. Her eyes were dull and deep, like she'd seen every secret the house had ever kept. Well, the place looks great, Eric offered awkwardly. Real cozy. She didn't reply. Instead, she held out a rusted key tied to a carved wooden ring and pressed it into my palm. Her fingers were ice cold. Do not disturb what isn't yours, she said softly. Some things in this house like being left alone. I blinked. Sorry, what? But she was already walking away, slowly disappearing into the trees like smoke dissolving in the air. Eric raised an eyebrow. That was creepy as hell. Yeah, I murmured, rubbing my hand where she'd touched me. Inside, the air was heavy, floral and wrong, like rotting lilies in a sealed room. Still, everything looked clean. Old, sure, but cared for. A faded tapestry hung above the fireplace. Furniture mismatched but intentional. Antique chairs, thick curtains, bookshelves that smelled of dust and lavender. Upstairs, our bedroom had low ceilings and a 4-poster bed draped in white linen. It should have felt romantic. Instead, it felt watched. That's when I saw it. In the far corner, half hidden in shadow, stood a cradle. Dark oak, hand-carved, too old to be decorative. It looked used, loved once, forgotten now. That's a weird thing to leave for guests, I said. Eric shrugged. Adds to the aesthetic, I guess. I don't like it. Want me to move it? No, just leave it. That night I couldn't sleep. Eric passed out fast, the firelight flickering across his face. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling beams, listening to the house breathe. Every so often, the wood creaked like someone pacing below us. Around 2:14 a.m., I heard it, a soft, rhythmic rocking, back and forth, wood against wood. I sat up, pulse pounding. Eric snored quietly beside me. The cradle was moving, just slightly, the faintest sway, as if touched by a hand too gentle to see. Then it stopped. I waited, breath shallow, staring into the dark. Something about the shape inside it made my throat close. There was a blanket, folded, small, and underneath it, something shifted. I threw off the covers, heart slamming, and stepped closer. The blanket was damp, not wet from rain, damp with something warm. Beneath it, nothing. Just the faint imprint of where something small had been lying moments ago. Then I heard it, a sigh, a baby's sigh, right behind me. I turned. Empty room, firelight flickering, nothing there. The next morning, Eric brushed it off. "You were dreaming," he said. But the cradle was in a different spot, just a few inches closer to the bed. By nightfall, I'd stopped pretending to sleep. The rocking came again, louder this time. And when I finally found the courage to look, there was a hand on the cradle's edge, tiny, gray, half-translucent, and it was rocking itself. I screamed. Eric jolted awake. "What?" But the cradle was still, empty again. He didn't believe me. He said I was tired, stressed, imagining things. So I waited until he fell back asleep, and I recorded it. At 3:07 a.m., the cradle began to move again, slow, steady, deliberate. The blanket rose slightly, like something breathing beneath it. And over the sound of the rocking, a woman's voice whispered, "You shouldn't have touched it." When I showed Eric the recording the next morning, he looked pale. "I didn't touch anything," he said quickly. But there was something he wasn't telling me. I found it that afternoon while he was outside smoking, a drawer in the living room locked. I pried it open with a knife. Inside, a stack of old photographs. Same cottage, different years, different families. Every photo had one thing in common, a cradle in the background, and every family had one member blurred, smudged, or missing entirely. The last photo was dated October 14th, 1973. A woman and a man holding a baby. Underneath, in shaky handwriting, "The house chooses who stays." I packed my bag that night, told Eric we were leaving in the morning. He didn't argue, he just looked tired. At dawn, I went downstairs. Eric was gone. The front door stood open. I called for him. Nothing. Then I heard it, the rocking, upstairs. The cradle moved slowly, rhythmically, a lullaby playing somewhere faint beneath the floorboards. I stepped closer, trembling. The blanket was moving again. When I reached out, just an inch away, a tiny cold hand grabbed my finger, and from inside the cradle a voice whispered, "You can rest now, Mommy." The world went black. When I woke, it was daylight. The bed was made, the cradle empty, Eric's side of the bed untouched, his car gone, his bag gone, no footprints outside. I called the caretaker's number from the booking email. No answer. A week later, the police found our car miles away in the woods, engine cold, doors open, no sign of Eric. They told me the listing didn't exist anymore. No record of the site, no caretaker. Sometimes I still dream about that cradle, the sound it made, the voice that called me Mommy. And sometimes in the middle of the night, I wake to hear the faintest creak of wood, rocking, rocking, rocking. It was supposed to be my last week. One more paycheck, one more boring closing shift, and then I'd finally be free of the mall. I'd worked at Golden Pines Mall for almost 3 years. 3 years of fake smiles, Christmas carols on loop, and the sickly smell of cinnamon pretzels that never quite left your clothes. But that night, that Friday night, it felt different, too quiet, too still, like the whole building was holding its breath. My store, Trendy Threads, sat near the end of the East Wing, right across from a shuttered Sears that had been empty for almost a decade. The kind of space that made noises when it shouldn't. Footsteps, faint metallic bangs, the whisper of air through rusted vents. We'd all joked about it before. But when you're alone, mopping floors under dim lights, jokes stop being funny. The shift started normal enough. My coworker Maya left around 8:30. "You got the close?" she asked, already halfway out the door. "Yeah, I'll finish the count and lock up." She winked. "Try not to get haunted." "Ha ha," I muttered. By 9:45, the mall felt dead. Only a few overhead lights stayed on after closing, giving the corridors a washed-out, dreamlike glow. I finished folding the last stack of shirts, grabbed the trash bag, and pushed open the back hallway door that led to the service corridor. A narrow, echoing tunnel behind all the stores. That hallway always creeped me out. No music, no chatter, just the hum of the old fluorescent lights. But I'd walked it 100 times before. This time, though, halfway to the dumpster, one of the lights popped. Sharp and loud. Glass sprinkled the floor. The light flickered, then went black. "Great," I sighed. Then I heard it. From further down the hallway, a soft thud, followed by another, slow, heavy, like footsteps dragging something. I froze. "Hello?" Silence. Then a faint, wet shuffling sound. My heartbeat kicked up. Probably a janitor. Or security. I dumped the trash, turned back, and nearly screamed. At the far end of the corridor, under the last flickering light, stood a shape. Tall. Still. Wrong. Its head tilted slightly, like it was studying me. "Hey, you're not supposed to be back here," I managed, voice shaking. The shape didn't move. Then the light above it went out. One by one, each bulb along the hallway flicked off in sequence. Pop, 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 until I was standing in total dark. I ran. When I burst through the stockroom door, the mall's main speakers crackled. That shouldn't have been possible. They were supposed to shut off after hours. A faint voice came through, distorted, static heavy. Maintain the floor, please." Then a sound, a child's laugh, not cheerful, just off-key. Every muscle in my body went cold. I grabbed my phone. No signal. I went for the front door. Pulled, locked. It was supposed to open with my keycard. But the reader just blinked red. That's when the music started. The mall's main speakers erupted in soft piano. The same song they used during the holiday season. Except this wasn't December. And it was playing too slow. Like a record melting in the sun. The mannequins in the window caught my eye. There were 3, all wearing the new denim display I'd dressed earlier that evening. Except one was turned, facing inward. I blinked. Had I left it that way? No, I'd faced all of them outward, always outward. I stepped closer. The glass reflected my shaking face, mundan, and behind me, faintly, movement. A reflection that shouldn't have been there. Someone, tall, pale, wearing something black, stood just inside the stockroom door. Not moving, just standing. I spun around, empty. When I turned back to the window, all 3 mannequins were now facing me. I dropped my keys. Something inside the store shifted, like wood under weight. Then a faint voice came from the intercom again, clearer this time. "Customer service. Aisle 5. There was no aisle 5. This wasn't even that kind of store. Then came the sound, distant, echoing through the mall. A slow, deliberate knocking. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 more. I forced myself to look toward the corridor entrance. There, a shadow slipping just beyond the edge of the emergency lights. "Security!" I yelled. No answer. Just that same dragging sound again. Closer now. I backed toward the cash counter, grabbed the phone. Dead. No dial tone. When I looked up, the mannequins were gone. Every light in the store died. And in that pitch black, I heard a single whisper right by my ear. "You work late!" I screamed and bolted through the stockroom. The emergency exit flung open with a metallic crash, slamming me into the parking lot. Cold air hit my face. Empty lot. Silent mall. I ran to my car, hands shaking too hard to get the key in. When I finally did, I looked up and froze. Every light inside the mall had turned on, every store window glowing. And at the far end of the hallway, visible through the glass, stood dozens of figures, all motionless. Mannequins, every single one from every store, the town lined up facing the exit. In the middle of them stood a tall man in black. No face, no movement, just watching. I quit the next day. Told my manager I wasn't coming back. He just laughed. Said the cameras didn't show anything unusual. No man in black, no mannequins moving. But when I went to grab my final paycheck, the janitor stopped me. An older guy named Pete, been there 20 years. He looked at me with tired eyes and said, "You worked the East Wing last night, didn't you?" "Yeah." "Why?" "They shouldn't put closers there after 10. I swallowed. "Why not?" He took a deep breath. That part of the mall was built over the old factory, the one that burned in '92. They say the night guard died trying to get people out. Never found his body. He leaned closer, but the cameras still catch him sometimes. Standing there, watching, making sure no one leaves early. Now every time I drive past Golden Pines Mall after dark, I see it. The faint glow of that East Wing. Mannequins still facing the door, and sometimes, if I stop long enough, one of them lifts a hand and waves. You never realize how big a Starbucks feels until you're the only one left inside. No music, no chatter, just the sound of the espresso machine cooling down. Little metallic clicks echoing like distant footsteps. It was a Wednesday night, sometime after 11:30. We'd closed at 10, but I was still there, cleaning, counting the register, waiting for my ride. The others had left about an hour earlier. Ben, my shift lead, was supposed to lock up, but he'd gotten a call and bailed early, muttering something about his roommate's car breaking down. "Just make sure the doors are locked when you go," he'd said. So yeah, I was alone. I didn't mind. I'd done solo closes before, but that night, it felt different. The air inside the cafe was still, too still. Outside, the parking lot lights flickered under the drizzle. The neon green siren glowed faintly on the window, her reflection floating over my own. Then, a soft tap. I froze. It came from the drive-thru window. We'd been closed for almost 2 hours. No one should have been there. I turned slowly. Through the slanted glass, a car sat idling at the speaker post. Its headlights were off, just sitting there, engine low and steady. I leaned toward the window, squinting. The rain made it hard to see, but I could make out a dark sedan. Old, maybe early 2000s. Tinted windows, no visible plates. "Sorry, we're closed," I called out. No movement. Then slowly the car rolled forward, creeping along the lane, until it stopped right at the drive-thru window. I stepped closer, my heart picking up. "Hey, we're closed for the night." The window was fogged from the rain. I wiped it with a rag. That's when I saw the hand, pressed against the glass from the other side. Long fingers, too long. Skin pale, almost gray. The rest of the car was too dark to see inside. "Sir, you need to leave," I said, forcing my voice steady. The hand slid slowly down the glass, leaving behind a trail, not of condensation, but of something dark, sticky, red. My breath caught. I took a step back. Then the car just rolled forward. No sound, no tires crunching, just a smooth, unnatural glide out of sight. I locked the drive-thru window. Heart racing, I went to check the front doors. Still bolted. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe I was just tired. Then the door chime dinged. My blood turned to ice. That door only dings when someone comes in. But it was locked. I had just checked it. I turned toward the counter. The lights flickered once, and something stood at the far end of the cafe. A man, soaking wet. Head tilted slightly like he was listening to something I couldn't hear. His clothes looked wrong, old-fashioned, almost like a delivery uniform from decades ago. Dark green apron, no logo, and his eyes were black, not shadowed, not dark brown, just pure, wet black. "Sir, we're closed," I whispered. He didn't move, didn't blink. Then he smiled, and in a low, crackling voice that didn't sound entirely human, he said, "The order's not ready." Every instinct screamed to run. but my legs wouldn't move. He started walking, slow, deliberate steps. His shoes made no sound on the tile. I stumbled backward, knocking over a display of tumblers. The crash broke whatever hold I was under. I bolted for the back door. It was stuck. The lock turned halfway, then jammed. Behind me, the chime rang again. Ding, 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 like the door was opening and closing on its own. I turned. The cafe was empty. No man. Just wet footprints leading from the counter to the middle of the room, and then stopping. Right where I was standing. The next thing I remember is running through the parking lot. I don't even remember unlocking the door. I just remember the rain on my face and the sound of my own heartbeat. When I looked back through the window, the cafe lights were off. Completely dark. But I could still see him, standing behind the counter, smiling. The next morning, Ben called me, said the security team wanted to talk. He sounded weird, quiet, shaky. When I got there, one of the mall guards pulled me into the office. He'd been reviewing the overnight footage. "You sure you were alone last night?" "Yeah," I said. "Why?" He stared at the monitor, at me, then turned it around. The footage showed me walking around the cafe, cleaning, counting, talking, but the camera angle never showed the drive-thru car, or the man. Only me, talking, reacting to empty space. I quit that day. But here's the part that still keeps me up. That car I saw, the old sedan. I looked it up out of curiosity. There'd been an accident outside the mall years ago. Delivery driver, Starbucks uniform. Car caught fire in the drive-thru lane. Employee on the night shift never made it out. His name was Ben. Sometimes when I drive by that Starbucks after hours, I see it. A faint glow inside, a figure behind the counter, and a whisper carried through the static hum of the night air. "The order's not ready." I started working at Starbucks in 2017 during college. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. Early shifts, free drinks, and coworkers who felt more like family than colleagues. Our store sat right off the highway next to a 24-hour gas station. We closed at midnight, reopened at 4 a.m., and between those hours, the world outside felt like a ghost town. That's when Mara started. She was quiet, polite, maybe 19 or 20. Long brown hair tied neatly, pale eyes that didn't quite meet yours. She said she'd transferred from another location, one up north, but she never said which. The first night she trained with me, she didn't need instruction. She already knew everything: how to calibrate the espresso machine where the filters were stored, how to restock milk without leaving the fridge open even a second. I remember laughing, asking, "You sure you haven't worked here before?" Her lips curved into the smallest smile. "Not here," she said, "but I've been around." She never clocked in or out. I thought it was a management issue. New hires sometimes had system errors. But when I mentioned it to our shift lead, Tasha, she frowned. "Mara who?" "The new girl," I said. "Tall, quiet, works the night shift with me." Tasha blinked. "We haven't hired anyone new in 2 weeks." I didn't push it. I figured maybe she just didn't know. Managers lose track. Still, that night when Mara showed up again, I asked, "Hey, my manager said she didn't have you on the schedule." She didn't look up from wiping the counter. "Oh," she said softly. "That's okay." I liked to help the way she said it. Calm, patient, made my skin crawl. I laughed it off, but every night after that she was there, always waiting by the door before I even unlocked it, always wearing the same uniform, always humming that same soft tune under her breath. The melody from the Starbucks hold music. One night around 2 a.m., I went to take the trash out. It was freezing, fog hanging low, the kind that muffles sound. I dragged the bag to the dumpster behind the building and heard the door click shut behind me. "Hey, Mara," I called. No answer. When I turned back toward the window, she was standing there, inside, staring at me through the glass, not moving, not blinking, just watching. I waved awkwardly, motioning for her to unlock the door. She tilted her head slowly, bird-like, then turned and disappeared behind the espresso bar. I pounded on the glass. No response. When I finally ran around to the front, the door was open, the lights were off, and Mara was standing in the middle of the store holding a steaming cup of coffee. "You shouldn't go out back alone," she said. "They don't like that." My voice trembled. "Who doesn't?" She smiled again. "The ones who stay after closing." The next morning, I told Tasha everything. She stared at me for a long time before pulling something up on the store tablet. "You said her name was Mara?" I nodded. She turned the screen toward me. An old news clipping from 2013. Local barista dies in Starbucks fire. Gas leak suspected. Below the headline was a photo. A young woman in a green apron, same pale eyes, same smile. Mara Thompson, age 19. She'd been alone on a closing shift when the gas line ignited. The fire destroyed the building. No body was ever recovered. The store? Rebuilt? Same address. Ours. That night I showed up for my shift early. The doors were already unlocked. The smell of roasted beans filled the air, too strong, bitter. And from behind the counter I heard humming. That same slow tune. I called out, voice shaking. "Mara?" No answer. The espresso machine hissed suddenly, releasing a burst of steam that fogged the window. When it cleared, words were written across the condensation. "Clock out." I dropped my apron and ran. It's been years now. I moved to another city. Different job, different store. But sometimes when I close alone, I catch that same melody in the air. Faint, familiar. And every time I wipe down the espresso machine, the steam fogs up the window just long enough for a few words to appear. "Don't forget to clock out." I worked the late shift at a Starbucks just outside a shopping plaza. The kind that closed at 10 p.m., but we stayed open until midnight for drive-thru orders. By 11:30, it was usually dead quiet, just the hum of the espresso machine and the sound of the mop bucket rolling over tile. That's when I first noticed him. A man in a gray suit sitting alone by the window. No phone, no laptop, no drink. Just staring out at the parking lot. I walked up to him, wiping my hands on my apron. "Hey, sorry, sir, we're closing in about 20 minutes. Can I get you something?" He didn't answer. Didn't even blink. He just turned his head toward me, slow and deliberate, and said in a voice that was almost a whisper, "You already did." I froze. His tone was calm, too calm, like he wasn't talking to me but remembering something. I glanced at his table. Empty. No receipt, no cup, no napkin. "Sorry, maybe you've mistaken me for..." But when I looked back up, he was gone. The chair was empty. No sound, no movement, nothing. The next night, he was there again. Same table, same gray suit, same expressionless face. This time, my manager, Lila, noticed too. "That guy creeps me out," she muttered. "He doesn't order anything. He just sits there." We checked the cameras later. Every angle showed the cafe, except for his table. Whenever we rewound to the moment he appeared, the footage skipped. A second missing. Then, boom, he was just there. After a week of this, we started closing early just to avoid him. But it didn't matter. Even when we locked the doors, sometimes the motion sensors would trip the alarms at 2 or 3 a.m. Each time, the police reported the same thing. Front door locked. No signs of entry. Just a single coffee cup sitting on table 6. His table, filled halfway with black coffee. One night, I stayed late to clean the ovens. The lights were half off, the music off too, just the hum of the refrigerator. Then I heard it, the soft clink of ceramic on wood, from the seating area. I turned slowly. Table 6. He was there, staring right at me. "You forgot my refill," he said. His voice was low and distorted, like a recording played underwater. I stammered, "Sir, we're closed." "You said you'd be right back." His head tilted just slightly, and I saw the faint reflection of firelight in his eyes. The air smelled suddenly of burned coffee and melted plastic. I bolted to the back room, heart pounding. When I came back with Lila, the man was gone again. But on the table was a receipt, torn and yellowed with age. It read, "Tall black coffee, 2013 $1.95 cashier." Lila, she went pale. That was my first day here," she whispered. 10 years ago." She looked up at me. "There was a fire that night. A guy didn't make it out. We never saw him again after that. But every October, right around the anniversary of that fire, the same thing happens. A single coffee cup appears on table 6. No one ever sees who leaves it there. No one dares sit there anymore. And if you listen close late at night, long after closing, you can still hear a man's voice near the window saying softly, 'You said you'd be right back.'" I used to close up the Starbucks on 9th and Willow. We were open until 1 a.m., and I usually worked the late shift alone, cleaning, restocking, prepping for morning. It was peaceful, until the night the grinder started making that sound. It was just after midnight. No customers, no drive-thru orders. The store was silent except for the low buzz of the refrigerators. I had finished mopping when the espresso grinder suddenly came to life on its own. A low whir, like someone pressing the button, except no one was near it. I froze. The machine vibrated softly, beans rattling inside the hopper. Then it stopped. I unplugged it, laughed nervously, and went back to cleaning. Probably a power surge, I told myself. But then from inside the grinder came a faint ticking, like something trapped was tapping from within. The next morning I told my manager, Carla. She sighed. "That thing's ancient. Probably just jammed. I'll get maintenance to check it out," but maintenance never came. And every night around 12:30 the grinder would start on its own. For exactly 13 seconds. Always 13. Never more, never less. One night I decided to film it. I set up my phone on the counter, recording while I cleaned. Sure enough, 12:31 a.m. The grinder clicked on by itself. The lights flickered. The air felt charged like before a storm. And then as the blade spun, I heard something new. A voice. Faint, distorted but unmistakable. It whispered, "Help me." I nearly dropped my phone. The machine kept spinning, grinding nothing. Empty. When it finally stopped, I pulled off the hopper to look inside. The smell hit first, metallic, rancid. Then I saw it. Stuck between the burrs was a fragment of something pale and brittle. It wasn't a bean. It was a tooth. I backed away, shaking. Called Carla immediately. She came in half asleep, muttering about pranks and mice. When I showed her the tooth, she went silent. Then she whispered, "Oh no. Not again." I stared at her. "What do you mean, again?" She hesitated, then pulled out her phone and showed me an article. A short local piece from 2015. Starbucks employee found dead after closing. Accident involving espresso grinder. A picture below the headline showed a smiling young barista. Her name was Dina Alvarez. Her shift, 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. Our exact schedule, same store, same grinder. Carla told me she'd worked with Dina years ago. Apparently, Dina had stayed late one night trying to fix the jammed grinder by herself. They found her the next morning. The official report said, "Equipment malfunction." But staff whispered about something else, that Dina had been pulled in. Since then, every new closer complained about the same thing. The grinder starting by itself. The faint ticking. The whisper. I quit a week later. But before I left, I took one last look at the machine. It sat there in the corner, gleaming under fluorescent light, silent as ever. Then just as I turned to leave, it clicked on. For 13 seconds. And when I looked into the hopper, I saw something moving. A reflection. Not mine. A girl in a green apron staring back at me. Her mouth moved, but no sound came. Just the faint hum of the grinder swallowing her words. I never worked another closing shift again. But sometimes when I stop at a random Starbucks and hear that familiar grinding noise behind the counter, I swear I can still make out the same faint whisper in the static. "Help me."